Hello, everyone, and welcome to Postnatal Minds podcast, episode 13. Today, I'm joined by a friend. So this is really fun because it feels like a catch up because she recently moved away as well. Actually, one of my NCT gals, nearly 5 years strong from when we had our first children, mother of two, both of us now, Michaela. Hi, Michaela. Welcome.
Hello, this is exciting.
I know. We've always spoken about, well, as anyone with an NCT mum group will know, you speak about anything and everything from the word go, but birth has always been a huge topic. And we were a group of 10, weren't we, in the end, with our NCT in Brighton?
Yeah.
And it's still going strong. And our girls were COVID babies. So we all met once in person and then we went into lockdown pretty much, didn't we? We had the outside meetings in the pouring rain when some people had popped and some people hadn't. We got our flower pot coffees and stood outside and got absolutely soaked. And yeah, as for anyone else who has a group of people that are pregnant around the same time, everyone had very different birth experiences. And Michaela and I had a conversation about this and how no one really talks about birth enough and how different they can be and your element of choice and how badly it can go wrong. So if you're pregnant and you're about to give birth, maybe give this one a wait until after you've had your baby. But Michaela, let's start. Your second birth was a planned C-section, and you drew upon our knowledge of those of us that had planned C-sections, because I did the first and second time round. And you're a physio, aren't you? So you're probably like the best for your recovery for that one. We will come on to C-sections. So I'm hoping this episode will be a real all-rounder, but Michaela has really kindly agreed to come and talk about her experience with her first and second, but let's start with the first birth with Erin.
Yeah. So you touched on the fact it was COVID, and I think COVID had a big reasoning, I guess, as to why I was going to try and push for a home birth, because it meant at the time that Nick would be around rather than sort of going into hospital and then him not being able to be there. But
That's
I think
due
in
to
hindsight that
work,
was
by the
probably a
way.
silly idea.
Like just because of work. So yeah, I think we work. So there's no other reason. He just decided not to be there if you go to hospital. But yeah. Did you do hypnobirthing and anything like that?
I did the online one. I didn't go, I can't remember the name of it. The one that you can do the course online. But I have to
Positive
say,
Birth
but yeah, the Positive Birth Company. I
Positive Birth
think
Company.
loads of people find it really useful. I didn't, in all honesty, and I didn't really use much
Really?
from it. So
Okay.
I think, I don't know. I think my mind's maybe a bit too busy and it wouldn't sort of settle with those things. But I did do it, and I did make my husband watch some of it with me as well. So, we did have some of those tools to kind of be using, but they did kind of go out the window, actually. I think that it's probably
because all of
didn't
our
help the situation.
No, it's bringing it back because all our NCT sessions were online as well, weren't they? So we didn't all meet until the sessions had finished. And then, I think the WhatsApp group was obviously formed after our NCT sessions. And then the mama group's still going strong. I mean, I dread to think how many messages have been sent in that, but we're so lucky in the sense that we've got like a sturdy, secure, safe group of women who, I mean, anything and everything has been in that group from then to now and continues. Some people have had seconds, some people haven't. And I guess we can't vouch for that enough how valuable that NCT network's been, hasn't it? I really advocate for that.
Things now, don't we? We still talk about, even with the nearly 5-year-old, and even when they were really little, the questions that went on there, and the group of like expertise in our NCT group was just brilliant as well. It covers most areas. I think that's why it's been so useful.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because poor Katie's a GP in our group, and like the amount of messages that she's probably had separately, like, sorry, no, you're not working, but yeah, it's definitely all bases covered.
Easy
so
to get that question answered pretty quickly.
Yeah, and you tell everyone how old your children are, just so they get to know a bit about you and where you live.
So we have recently relocated down to Norfolk, so we're in Norwich at the moment, and we are with my first, who will be 5 in October. so we find out for schools tomorrow. And then I've got Mia, who's in the background sneezing, and she is nearly 7 months. So
Yeah.
yeah, nice age difference between them, really. About four years and a week is the age difference.
Michaela's a bit of a superwoman in my eyes because, as she mentioned before, Nick, her partner, has to spend quite a lot of time away working. And as everyone who's done the transition from 1 to 2 will know, it can be a lot. And she spends a lot of time on her own and not without us being able to dive over and take some of the burden. So,
Surviving
yeah,
it, not managing it, I think. But there we go.
yeah. But taking you back to October 2020, so
Yeah,
you done the hypnobirthing, didn't really vibe with
yeah.
it. You're
I
hoping
did
for a home
pregnancy.
birth.
Yeah, I did pregnancy yoga. I did a lot of that quite often. Um, and yeah, it was the midwives that I'd seen had quite like a straightforward pregnancy, apart from measuring a little bit small at times. Yeah, otherwise pretty straightforward. So they said to me, "Well, why have you got that home birth?" And I kind of had briefly. I read this book, and it kind of pushed me into that I could be strong, empowered, ready to give birth, home birth, and it was all going to be fine. So I said yes to having the home birth team, really, but I didn't even get that far at home.
So yeah. So when were you due? Didn't something happen on due date for you, or have I just imagined that?
Yeah, so that night, so my due date that evening, I was actually filling up the dog water bowl I went down, and my
Yeah, that
waters
was
went.
it. I remember
It's like
now.
one of those comedy moments on a TV program that they said never happened. But bent
Yeah.
down, and yeah, my waters went, and I thought, okay, like she's on time. I didn't know she was having a girl, but on time. I think about 3 hours later, my contractions started. I had like sort of period cramps for a little bit, and then it started to ramp up a little bit more. And then I called the home midwife team, and they said, "Oh, like let us know how you're going. Let's see how you go. Get rest." And then I had contractions all night, and I just remember walking around the kitchen island like all night, um, and then got to like 7, 8 in the morning, and they just stopped. And I was like, okay, what do we do now? And it stopped for about 4 hours, I think. And then they started up again. And then this continued until the Wednesday, early hours of Wednesday morning, I think, when the home midwife team came out to me. And I'd sort of been having contractions every 7 minutes. It got down to about 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and then it just never really got much further. But it was like every night. So Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, just up all night, just walking.
So you were already exhausted by that point, presumably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just not really that hungry. I know my partner was trying to like feed me, and by this point you're just so tired and you feel like sick and you're not comfortable. And then I had the home midwife team come out to me and do like blood pressure, urine test, and something else. And by this point, they were thinking I might have an infection because blood pressure had gone really high. I think my temperature had gone, like all those things. So they just kind of said, "Oh, it's time that you went into hospital." And then they were kind of like, you're not going to come home and have the baby. You need to go." So I remember sort of getting in the car. Oh no, that was it. I phoned the hospital. I was meant to have it at Brighton. They were on divert. It was so busy. So it was
Oh
on
yeah, I
divert.
remember that.
Yeah, so I had to go to Hayward Heath instead, which was fine, but it just unexpected. And you get in the car and you think, "Oh, okay, where are we going?" So yeah, it ended up going to Hayward Heath. Like trying to drive carefully, but trying to sit as well when you're having contractions was just horrendous. And I was using the had a TENS machine, and actually the positive birthing app. I was using that.
To time your
Um,
contractions.
to time the contractions. And that felt like just giving you something to do was really useful. By the end time of doing that, you're kind of a bit fed up of it because
Yeah. Too
nothing's really
tired to
happening.
concentrate probably as well. I mean, you've
Yeah,
practically been up for 3 nights.
yeah. And then I got there, and the obstetrician came to see me in the prenatal bit, and she just kind of went through the different options and just said, "You're going to need to be induced. Your waters went on like the Sunday, Monday night. You should have been induced after 24 hours because you've lost the fluid around the baby," which I didn't really know was a thing until sort of way after actually having it in, that you should be induced within 24 hours because the risk of the baby is really high. But also
So
to,
was that a failure
yeah,
on their behalf then? Yeah.
yeah, so there was quite a few things that happened during the journey, that's kind of reflected upon and
Realised.
realised that it wasn't right. And also because when you've lost all the fluid from around the baby, labouring like that can be quite uncomfortable for like
Yeah, of
same just the
course.
baby and
Just
then for
laying
you as
on your
well.
yeah.
Yeah. So it was getting to the point where I just couldn't sit. I'd just walk the whole time every time I was contracting. But the obstetrician I had was pretty fierce and not in a nice way. She categorically told me that I wasn't going to have a C-section, but it had always been something that I'd said I didn't want to be induced. It wasn't what I wanted to do. And she just kind of said, no, that's not the way we're going with this. Like, you need to
And
be
did you
induced.
at that point, were you able to say why, or were you just too in the zone at that point? Because that's not right, is it? I guess we should just flag that you always should have the
Yeah,
choice.
you should do it. Yeah. And I think the laws changed actually since we had our fair.
Oh,
So
really?
it's a lot easier now to say I want a C-section, or I feel like I need a C-section. You don't have to argue it as much. Whereas at the time, I think it was still very like clinician led. If you weren't falling into the criteria, then they kind of wanted to keep going with sort of and pushing on with a natural labour. And I think it was hard because realistically, if my partner had been there, it, he would have probably advocated a bit more. But because of COVID, he just had to drop me off and wait outside.
So mad when you look back now, isn't it? Like that ever was
Yeah.
able to happen. It just, yeah, it's mind blowing.
Yeah. So the obstetrician then said I needed a pill. It wasn't like a pessary, it was like a tablet, and that she'd insert it into my cervix and then they'd see how we go. And I remember crying because I didn't want it. And the midwives were really lovely and kind of saying, like, see how we go, sort of thing. But the obstetrician actually did a sweep at the same time. And I obviously didn't say yes to having a sweep. I never
So
wanted
she
a
didn't
sweep.
ask your permission for that. My goodness.
No. So by this point, I'm like tired, and I don't particularly cry that easily either. It's not
No,
my
I
go-to
don't.
too.
No.
And I'd probably be usually quite like an advocate for myself. So I think I was just running on empty by this point.
But that's a really good point, Michaela, isn't it? Because you and I are both quite similar like that. Like we are able to say, hold on a minute, can I just ask why, or question things, or that we wouldn't just say, we're not afraid to say boot or goose. And I think that's a really important point because there'll be so many women in the similar positions that one, don't know their rights, two, don't know whether to say, sorry, can I just stop you for a minute there and ask why or what? But you're loading on top of that lack of sleep, being vulnerably in a lot of intense pain, and potentially doing something that you've never done before. So you're becoming extremely vulnerable at this age that you haven't been in that situation for so long. You're kind of all your tools are out your toolbox, and then obviously COVID time you didn't have your partner there, but even then, even if you do have your partner there now, like they've never done it before either. Like they might just, it's that like coat thing, isn't it? If they're saying I need to do that, I need to do that, I'm too tired to challenge this. But
And I think having healthcare backgrounds for both of us, we wouldn't
yeah,
be concerned about saying to somebody, well, why are we doing that? Or what's the other options? But at the time, yeah, I definitely wasn't in a place to be like agreeing or not agreeing, I guess. So yeah, she did a sweep and put this tablet thing in. Um, Sorry, Mia's having a right good chat. And the midwives actually came over to me and said, did I want to make a complaint? And
right there and then.
yeah, yeah, they said, do you want to make a complaint? I think the obstetrician was known for being maybe a bit sort of abrupt. And I was only 2 centimetres dilated by this point after 4 days. And
My
the
goodness.
midwife actually moved me through to labour ward early to make sure that I wasn't working with that obstetrician, which I was really actually grateful for because it was just, yeah, it was full on. But it also meant that my partner could then come and join me.
Yeah,
So they moved
you
me
got
through
this.
early, which I was
Yeah,
grateful for.
yeah,
Um,
gosh.
but the tablets didn't work for me. Wasn't progressing at all, and Erin's heart rate was sort of going up and down a lot. So then they kind of moved on to the next thing, which was oxytocin, and
The
they
drip.
said the drip. Yeah, and when Nick was there by this point, I kind of said again, I don't want to be induced anymore. I'd prefer a C-section. And the midwife was like, she was a good cheerleader for continuing. Is the
Yeah.
best way to describe it. She was
So
like,
that's two times you've said, I don't want to do this,
yeah.
and no one's listened.
No, and the hardest bit is because she kind of sold it like you'll be able to drive easier. You've done this so many days, keep going. And they said you will need the epidural because it's such a artificial hormone. Your contractions are going to be really, really strong. You haven't got all this fluid, so you need to have the epidural, and then you have to have a catheter and all those
Yeah, of
things as
course.
well. And I was kind of digging my heels in, and then and I know my partner feels bad about it because he kind of sided with the midwife and said this could be a better recovery for you, like you'll be able to drive. If you have a C-section, you won't be able to do all those things. And it was a sticking point post birth as well with that. So I agreed to it. So I had the drip and the epidural, and then I had to have catheter as well. And it was just so far away from like home birth
Yeah,
vibes,
what
I
you'd
guess. Like,
potentially envisaged.
yeah. And then I think I went another 11 hours maybe with that. And once the epidural's in, actually, that section wasn't too bad because you have like a little button and you press it if you feel you need more pain relief. And I could actually still move around because it wasn't a
Mm,
full spinal block. You can use it and walk around, but you don't
mm,
have the sensation or ability to be able to pass urine. So you have to have the catheter. Which then means you're in for a couple of days or at least a night, I think,
mm.
because of that. There was someone with you the whole time, and my partner fell asleep. Useful. He was very tired, must have been very tired
It's
from all
quite
this
like
sleep.
that's quite a cliche thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Did you get a
yeah,
photo of
definitely.
him? I can't remember if
Yeah,
you did.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then I just remember having this real big pressure at one point, but I had the epidural, so I said to the midwife, like, I feel like I need to
something's
push.
changed. Yeah.
Something's changed. And she had a look and she was like, okay, yeah, I think we'll be ready soon. And then I started pushing, but I think, do you know what? I just don't think you ever get taught how to like push because you think you just need to push,
Yeah.
squeeze all everything and push as hard as you can.
Yeah.
And it just uses so much energy. And I wasn't efficient at it at all. But
Did you
I
get
didn't,
that because you're describing transition, aren't you?
yeah.
That's normally the point that women can freak out a bit, can't they? When they're like, I can't do this, it's too much. And then,
Yeah. I think I didn't get to that point. I think because the epidural was there, but I hadn't pressed it in about 2.5, 3 hours, so I could fit because I wanted to feel what was going on, but I had that massive pressure like in and around my bum, and I was like, "Oh my God, I feel really uncomfortable," and like on my
yeah,
back.
the
So I
panicky.
think, yeah, I think that was the point, and because I was all monitored up, I wasn't allowed to change position. And I remember saying, "Shall I turn over? Can I get up? This is really uncomfortable." And she was very much like, "You need to stay where you are," which again was all those things that I'd read about and spoken about with
Yeah.
people that you shouldn't do because that's not going to help the baby come out because you're not
Yeah.
using gravity. She was like, "No, no, no, you need to stay there and you need to stay on the monitor." And I was like, right. So it was all those things that I knew I shouldn't be doing. I was doing. I think
Yeah. And
that's
you
the
were in
worst
it.
bit. Yeah.
This is the thing that blows my mind about like the amount of time that had passed. So
Yeah.
obviously one of the main reasons that women don't get encouraged to have C-sections is because it's a cost heavy option, right, for the NHS,
Yeah.
the cost of doing an operation. But like, if you add up the amount of time that you're spending in hospital, all the clinicians that have come to you, the medications you've been given, the interventions up until this point is surely costing the NHS more than if they'd listened to you when you first
Yeah,
asked.
definitely. I think by the end of it, I think it definitely would have definitely accumulated to more. Just the amount of
Yeah,
people that I'd seen up until that point must have been about 8 people because in the home
yeah,
midwife team as well that came out, different midwives, obstetricians. Yeah, it was a lot. I remember once I got to that point of like feeling like I needed to push. I remember like trying to change position, her saying, "No, no, no, you can't," and then just telling me to press the epidural more because we can't move you. And I just knew, you just have that feeling. I don't know. I think the whole time my whole nervous system just felt uncomfortable. It just felt
yeah.
against
You,
anything that felt right.
yeah. And it's so bad and tragic that you, at least 3 times, even up until this point, had said, I don't want to, because some people might not even feel comfortable. It's sad that we live in a system that doesn't kind of do the opposite, that doesn't try to bring that out and empowerment to be like, what do you want to do? There is still that this is the way we're going. We need to do
Yeah.
this rather than, yeah.
I
So,
think there's that whole thing as women as well, isn't it? If a woman says something, they're not as listened to as a male. And I think in that environment as well, it's just kind of like you're not particularly listened to.
no, you're
It's
in
kind of
their
like, well, we do
hands.
this all the time. Babies are born all the time. Like you're not ill, you're not sick. So it
Yeah.
just felt, Yeah, bit
It's
tricky.
just still so important to follow your gut in the whole pregnancy, birth, and postnatal period. It's that message again about your gut and knowing, like you just said, with your nervous system, knowing when something's not right.
Yeah. So I got to the point of needing to push, and I don't think I really knew how to push, and I think that's something midwives should definitely teach you in
Yeah.
some of those appointments. Yeah, it got to the point where I was pushing. It must have been about 2 hours. I remember just turning to my partner and being like, "I'm so hungry. Like I haven't
Oh,
eaten in days.
really?
I'm so hungry." And just like worn out by this point. And then they said to me, "We're going to give it a few more goes and see how we're getting on," sort of thing. I was
But you can't eat at that
trying with all
point
my will. No,
because
in case
you've
something
had
goes
got the,
wrong.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think they were really concentrating on the baby's heart rate, and then it just every time I contracted, her heart rate would stop. Um,
So
and
she was getting
yeah,
tired as well.
and then we found out after that the umbilical cord was wrapped around. So every time I contracted it, like squashed it,
Pulled it.
so she couldn't. Yeah. So that was going on, but we didn't really realise. And then they just said to me, "We're going to press the button. Everyone's going to come running in, and we're going to take you to theatre." And we're going to need to get the baby out, essentially. And they come
How
running
are you
over. So they took
feeling at that
Nick.
point?
Do you know what? I was so out of it by this point. You just want the baby to come out and be safe. So you're
Yeah.
kind of,
Survival mode.
yeah, yeah, definitely. They took Nick off to go and put his scrubs on, and they just like chucked me a consent form. So you have to sign this consent form, and like the same as when you have a C-section, I guess you have to consent to what's going to happen. Um, and it's like you might damage your uterus, you might have to have a hysterectomy, you might die, all these things that you're not with it, you're just like shoved this form,
Whatever. Yeah.
sign it and go. And then literally like they're telling you your baby's heart rate's like stopping, or they've got concern, so you get rushed into theatre. And yeah, that's when they decided to use forceps with me, which if you've ever
Is
googled
this
them.
bit a bit of a blur now you look back?
Yeah.
Can you remember it clearly, or is it?
I can remember being taken into the room, and I remember the moment Erin was born, and I remember the look on the obstetrician's face. But then after that, I don't really remember. It's
So
pretty
did they
pretty
say to you, we're
patchy.
going to be using forceps? Can you remember?
They just said we were going to need to use assistance. They didn't say what, and they were just telling me to push, essentially. And the anaesthetist, I remember the anaesthetist telling me they were going to put a spinal block in. So the same as what you would
I
with a
see
C-section.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, so they changed the epidural to C-section, and yeah, used forceps. And I just remember them saying to me at one point, "Oh, you're a physio." I was thinking, why does that matter? And they felt like my pelvic floor wasn't letting go.
Oh.
And I was like, I've never heard that in my life. So, yeah, they used forceps to get Erin out, but it was another failure from them that I didn't have an episiotomy. So, nice guidelines would say you have an
Do
episiotomy
that
before you
first.
use forceps, and I didn't.
And
And
Michaela, I'm going to bring
yeah,
the physio part of you out now, but can you
yeah,
just, for those that might not know, can you explain
yeah,
what that is and why?
an episiotomy.
Yeah.
So it's like a little linear cut to make space for everything. So instead of you tearing like vagina to anus, they cut you slightly to one side to allow a bit more space for the baby to come out, or to put assistance tools in, like ventouse or forceps or whatever. Nice guidelines are like the guidelines any healthcare professional, doctor, nurse, midwife, obstetrician, anybody should generally follow. So episiotomy is kind of standard before doing anything. And you heal okay from it. You have you have your stitches and stuff, but
Yeah.
you generally heal quite well from it.
But they didn't
And
do that for you.
yeah, they didn't do that. And any midwife I've seen subsequently having Mia were just shocked every time they asked you what your last birth was like.
And what did that mean for you?
So as Erin came out and I pushed and the forceps were there, I essentially tore from, and if you're eating or anything like that, don't
Put
be
it
doing.
down.
I essentially tore from vagina halfway through to my anus. Yeah, quite a nasty tear through most of the tissues and into some of the muscles in and around my anus as well. And I found out after that I'd pulled some of my pelvic floor muscles sort of off of its attachment on one side where they put the forceps in. So they did a really good job, essentially screwing up, yeah, most things.
Essentially, you tore where the episiotomy cut would have been, but it wouldn't have been as deep and severe.
So the episiotomy, it goes to like the side. So if
Right.
you think of your like vagina, it goes to the side slightly.
Oh,
So it
okay.
just widens you. Whereas my should not be too graphic. I mean, I never saw it, but
Go down.
essentially, vagina and anus ended up together like one thing,
Yeah.
essentially, or
Wow.
one big tear. Yeah, which is kind of the worst case scenario. I guess there are worst case scenarios for natural
Yeah,
birth,
of
but
course.
that's not.
For a
Yeah,
woman's
it's not.
body within a natural birth experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And the obstetrician, as Erin came out and I pushed, I think maybe she was a bit heavy with the forceps, and I was like determined to get Erin out. And she actually apologized. She said, "I'm so sorry," as it happened. And I remember saying to her, it's
Really.
okay at the time, because you think, well, it's okay, like Erin's here. And I think
Whatever.
you
Yeah.
generally thought it's a tear, everyone has tears and stitches and everything's fine. I don't know. You don't know how bad it's going to be, I guess, at that point. So you think, oh,
That
it's fine.
that shows that she felt scared, that
Yeah,
obstetrician.
yeah. And I actually went on to meet her as the obstetrician that signed me off for the C-section for Mia, and she apologised again when she looked at my notes.
Really? And was that the same
Yeah,
obstetrician as the one from earlier in the day as well? No.
no, different woman. Yeah. Otherwise, I think I couldn't. Yeah, the other woman went off shift, thankfully, because I think she was tricky to say the least.
I mean, it's nice in the sense of closure that she said sorry, but also doesn't help what you went through or processing that. So
No.
Erin comes out. Was there a moment of panic? Was the cord still wrapped round? Did they have to unwind?
Yeah, and I don't remember that particularly well.
Mm.
She didn't need any extra care, which was really good. I think it was just literally the pressure of everything going on. So once they'd rectified that and she was born,
Mm.
she settled really quickly. And they went to give her to me and sort of brought her over. And I think my body went into shock at this point, because they tried to give it to me and I held her very briefly. I think we've got like one new family photo, and I couldn't hold her. I had to give her to my partner because I was
Your
just like,
body was in shock.
yeah, I was sort of the most extreme form of shaking. Post C-section obviously had it as well, but this was a different level.
Yeah.
And I nearly went unconscious. I didn't, but nearly did, on the table. And I did that sort of like went and then jolted up.
Well, you feel like you're going back a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And they sort of all dashed over to me and sort of started whatever I felt they needed. But I didn't know at the time and I didn't remember. But I hemorrhaged quite a lot at that time. So I think that was what was going on and was
Your
making me.
blood, you'd lost blood and your blood pressure was dropping.
Yeah. So I had 2 transfusions in theatre at the time while they were kind of sorting me out and stitching me up. And I think one of our pictures, you wouldn't know it, but my leg is like up in the air, like being stitched with these family pictures. There's
Oh
some
my
dark humour
God.
going on there.
I feel like
But
the pictures are
yeah,
so like, whenever I look back to the pictures of, we've got videos actually of both C-sections and the pictures, but I
yeah,
feel like you build that first picture up to be something that it just doesn't feel like it is either. I remember like you, when I was given not both of mine, and I was particularly with Arlo because my anemia was so bad, and I started feeling lightheaded and really sick, and they put him on my chest, and I was like, I love him, but I can't hold him right now, because I felt like it was stopping me from breathing. But yeah, you just, that first picture is never what you think it is
no,
going to
what people
be.
would think it would
Probably
be.
is for
I
some
think when I,
people. I don't want to generalize, but
yeah, I think as well, if you click on live on it, my blinks are like going, gone with all
yeah.
the pictures. Yeah,
I remember when after having Arlo, because I've obviously got this blood disorder, haven't I? So I was having blood transfusions monthly when I was pregnant. And then I knew it was going to happen again. And I remember telling them, I'm going to need a transfusion really soon after birth, and probably for the next couple of days. But they were always wanted to watch and wait. So they would have to do blood tests, see if my HB was low enough, and then order the blood. Whereas I was trying to get it into my haematology plan that blood would be ready, and it didn't happen. But I remember saying to them, I'm really faint and I'm going to faint and I'm feeling really drowsy. And they were like, okay, we'll do some bloods. And it dropped to like 60 or something. And then they had to like courier emergency blood down from London. But I remember that feeling of when you're so tired after birth. And I was closing my eyes and going to sleep, but I could tell that I was going unconscious, not going to sleep. I could tell
Yeah.
I was like distancing, going away rather than just resting. And I remember feeling too scared to go to sleep. And that's when I said, I'm actually losing consciousness here. But yeah, that is such a horrible, horrible feeling. And you can't think of anything else when you feel like that, when you've lost blood. It's so consuming. And I
Yeah.
totally remember that shock thing. Because you lose, I mean,
Yeah.
you lose blood in, obviously you lose blood in a C-section, but they use a machine that they put it all back in at the same time. But obviously for
Yeah.
you, that was like you would have had blood anyway from the procedure that you had. And then you obviously hemorrhaged, which would have been, I mean, Michaela, that, sorry if anyone's squeamish, but there must have been loads of blood
No,
everywhere.
I don't remember. I didn't see any of it. I don't remember seeing any of it. The only thing the only thing that stayed on my birth plan actually that would happen, they showed me immediately after, was I wanted to see the placenta. That was the only thing on my birth plan that ever happened.
So
The midwife kind of took a picture of it and was showing me the pictures. I think she was actually trying to keep me like alert, looking back
distracted.
at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't realize at the time. I just, yeah, just had that feeling, like you said, of like moving away, or yeah, just couldn't keep
Stay
eyes
present.
open, alert. Yeah,
Scary.
nothing. Such a horrible feeling.
Do you remember Nick in this situation? Do you remember him? Because I mean, he will have his own trauma from this, right?
Yeah, I think we had to. I think immediately after Erin, it took us a while to kind of unpick everything.
Yeah.
Definitely between like what had happened to me, but the whole process leading up to it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It was a big one for us, and something you don't expect after
No.
you've had a baby as well. I think the implications of having a birth that doesn't go your way, even though you say, I'm not too caught up on my birth plan, see how it goes,
Yeah. You still have a wish.
you still have a wish and you're still hopeful that it's quite straightforward. And I think it took me a long time after to realise that actually it was really traumatic for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just put it down to birth, and everyone has some form of trauma with it,
Yeah.
which is probably a really negative view in anyone that's going to have a baby. I mean, I
Yeah.
had friends at the time that had great births, or what you assume was a great birth, like pretty
Yeah.
straightforward, like no
Yeah.
recovery, all
The
those
lucky
things.
ones.
The lucky ones, I call them the unicorns now,
I
people that
don't
have
feel like
water births.
anyone, but no one, correct me if I'm wrong, but no one out of the 10 of us had one of those breeze through births, did they?
Not the first time round, definitely not.
No.
No,
Because I
no.
mean, yeah. And I think I don't want to like make you feel worse by saying this, but you'll know what I mean by this, that the reason I selected an elective C-section at 42 plus 2, the longest wait in the entire world. And yes, everyone, I was the last one out of the 10 of us. It was a lovely
Yeah.
wait, was because I couldn't bear the idea of ending up in an emergency situation with all of that tiredness behind me and that, like everything you've described, and then have a C-section. I
Yeah.
knew in my gut that I was going to be one of those people that induction just wouldn't work for me, and that I would have been really gutted if I'd ended up with an emergency C-section, which so many of my friends that had inductions had had. So yeah, opting for the elective. But you know, we must also say that in the same breath, and we'll talk a bit about your recovery from this birth, but like the C-section recovery is not easy, and it's not an easy route. And I think there's still a lot of stigma about like C-sections being the easy way out. Like they absolutely are not.
No.
In my opinion, there's not any great way to give birth, which is probably why we still hold quite a lot of fear about it. But tell us about
Yeah. Yeah.
the next few days and weeks.
Well, the next few days were hard actually, looking back on it.
Yeah.
Just you've got a new baby, you haven't slept in 4 days, just having much blood. You're on a ward of noisy people. Your partner gets sent home because it's COVID and come in for an hour a day. I've got a catheter bag. Yeah, it was. I remember kind of going through to the first postnatal bit. Nick was there, and you have a nurse that kind of looks after you. He's doing your obs every 15 minutes or whatever. And I think I was absolutely out of it because I had a shower.
We're, obviously, your catheter was out.
No, no, I had my catheter.
Really?
It must have been about 5 hours later, 5 hours after
Did it
birth.
feel like the best shower ever, though?
No, it felt horrendous, and I was bleeding everywhere. It was
God.
awful. And I don't remember, like, I still don't understand
How
my
was your
thought
blood
process.
pressure? How did you not faint?
I have no idea. I remember sitting down for bits of it, but I just felt like well, I must need to shower. I don't know. I wasn't with it. I definitely wasn't with
That's
it.
probably you just being like, right, this is what I should do. Let's do it.
Yeah, I felt like I needed to like get my head sorted to look after a baby, I guess. And
You're
yeah,
just
so
starting on the back foot, aren't you? Because you've already,
yeah,
I mean, you lose that amount of sleep in the first couple of weeks of postnatal fourth trimester anyway. But I mean, you've virtually not
yeah,
eaten well or slept for nearly a week, and then you've got this human to keep alive and yourself as well.
yeah. And everyone says about, oh, the tea and toast the best thing ever. Wouldn't remember it, to be honest. I don't resonate with that, unfortunately.
Was there anything that you craved when you were like, I need this, when you were hungry?
No, not particularly. And I think coming out of that birth and then having the C-section was so much more organised the second time.
Yeah,
Like with everything that could help recovery, we had
yeah,
it, I
yeah,
did
yeah,
it, I was really
yeah,
organised. This first time round, not particularly. And because I've got a milk allergy, a dairy allergy, the food that you get is really
yeah,
bad. It's like microwavable, that's like allergy friendly. So I think, yeah, the start of the recovery wasn't starting on great form anyway.
yeah.
But I remember I think they kept me in for 3 nights, and then I discharged myself
Right.
just because it was COVID. Everyone was really stretched. It was busy. There wasn't enough staff to ask for help, and then you're kind of like waddling around trying to do things with baby at the time.
Yeah.
But I remember saying really clearly to someone, I think it was a health visitor that came over to me, and she said, "Is everything all right?" And I said, "Everything's like numb still." So all under sort of the perineum and stuff was still numb. I can't feel anything. And she went away and spoke to someone, and they said, "Oh, it's just the anaesthetic and like the local anaesthetic that
Wearing
they put
off.
in." And I was like, "That was 2 days ago."
Mm.
I'm not sure about that. And yeah, I think one of the biggest things, again, that people don't tell you about is how swollen you are after. Just generally, I think when I've spoken to other people post birth, like you're pretty swollen. But then add into that you've had loads of stitches and everything else, like it doesn't feel quite right anyway.
Yeah.
But that on top of it, but it was really numb. And I was like, this
Sorry
doesn't
to
feel
ask this
right.
really brutal
Yeah.
question. You don't have to answer
No,
it,
it's
but
fine.
like having a poo after you've given birth, however which way you do
Yeah.
it, is always, let's say, challenging. You're numb, you're swollen, you've got stitches down there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but like the anesthetic and everything clogged me up. But
Yeah.
yeah, how did that go?
Well, I think you could have written a comedy for the state of care that I had. So
Yeah.
I was on loads of antibiotics because of everything that happened. And the antibiotics they gave me had lactose in, and I can't have that because it gives me awful diarrhea. So all I can say is I had a catheter bag and all these stitches, and I had eaten something that obviously really wasn't very good for me. So I never had that like concerning first poo that everyone has in
Yeah.
the sense mine was just like liquid
Opposite.
um
Yeah.
opposite. So it was more the movement to try and get there and then to be like, what on earth is going on? What on earth
Yeah.
is going on? But I know most people that is very much a worry. So I came a bit away unscathed with that side of things.
Yeah. Blessing in disguise.
But yeah, definitely a blessing in disguise. But a few days after, when I got home, the first poo I had when I got home, because of the damage to my pelvic floor, I couldn't push or like strain. I was again not to overshare to try and go to the toilet. I couldn't go. I knew I needed to. I had that
But the
urgency, but
connection
I
wasn't
couldn't.
there.
No, and it was terrifying because
So
you need
you've
to go
lost
and it
that
can't come
muscle.
out.
That's what you need that muscle function for. And
Yeah.
how long was it numb for?
I think it was numb for a good couple of weeks, and then I think I probably got used to it, and I guess that the nerves grew back. Like nerves grow so slowly,
Yeah.
but it did. Obviously, everything it did grow back, but yeah, couldn't feel anything. It was really really strange and just yeah, not very nice. And you just get sent home with
I was
when
going
I
to say
left the
follow up.
hospital.
Yeah.
I just got sent home with you received this tear, da, 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 and then it was a women's health physio will call you. So somebody called me at 6 weeks again because it was COVID, and just went through like a checklist. Do you have any incontinence issues like bladder incontinence? Do you have any problems sneezing? Da, da, da. And I didn't. I didn't fall into that category of like urine incontinency. I never really have.
Right.
I think lots of people think pelvic floor problems. Oh, you have certain amounts of like sort of urine leakage, and I
Yeah.
didn't. Mine was more pain underneath, real heaviness that started at about 6 to 8 weeks. So I started doing a bit more, like real sort of discomfort, pain, inability to pass wind because it was obviously scar tissue and it just wouldn't wouldn't do what it should. Yeah, and if I needed to go to the toilet, I needed to poo, I'd have to go at that moment of urgency. I'd have to find a toilet really quickly, because then if you missed
Yeah.
it was gone. I don't know, it was really strange,
Yeah,
like
need to seize the moment.
out of
And I
sync.
know I
Yeah.
know you obviously we were in COVID, so we weren't too terribly social. Like we missed out on like the coffee dates as mums and stuff. But how did all of that, looking back now, make you like you with your mental well-being? Like how did it affect you mentally?
Mm, I thought at the time, and again on reflection, I've sort of thought back a bit differently. I think I definitely had postnatal depression, but I didn't realise it at the time. Like I lost a lot of joy out of things,
Yeah,
um, and found that really hard. Like my default is always exercise, and to do
yeah,
exercise when I'm feeling
yeah,
anything.
yeah.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't even walk the dog because it would irritate my symptoms of this like heaviness um underneath, and it just didn't feel right. Even doing baby yoga with the babies that we'd heard online caused
If you
me a
can call
problem.
it that.
I
Yeah.
know.
So sad when we
That
look
caused
back now.
yeah, that caused me a massive problem. My lower bit of my back, where I'd had my legs and the forceps, it irritated my sacroiliac joint, which is right at the bottom of my spine. So I couldn't do a lot of walking, couldn't do anything impact.
Goodness.
Yeah, and it went on for a really long time, and I found that really, really hard.
I don't feel like you definitely weren't a moaner because I know we were all in the thick of it one way or another, but I don't feel like you. And I guess this is an important point, isn't it, to always check on people because people suffer in silence quite a lot because they feel like I'm the only one that's going through this, and this is obviously part of the reason that I want to talk about these things on the podcast. But
Yeah.
just to talk, if something's not right and you're not feeling great, then to talk about it because there will
Yeah.
be someone else that's feeling like you are. And it was really hard for us in that COVID time because everyone kind of felt a bit bummed and no one could go out. But there was an element of fear, wasn't there, of what BBC announcement is there going to be tomorrow and who can we see? And family hadn't met our children for months. And there were good things and bad things about COVID for us with our babes. I mean, it certainly hasn't impacted their development or their sassiness. But
No.
that definitely was when you look back now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was trying to unpick the elements of COVID and being at home, and being a new parent, and the sort of shake up that has in your life. And
Yeah.
then the other side of what the hell have I just gone through, and
Yeah.
the
Trying to,
sort of unexpected nature of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And did you guys ever put in a complaint about the care?
No, I didn't. So I got
Their
all my
stories.
notes. Yeah. And because of the wait time, it was over a year. So once your appointment gets over a year, they cut it off. So I never got to do it. So I got all my notes and read through them.
For anyone listening, you
Yeah.
have a legal right to do that, don't you? It's
Yeah.
useful for
And I'd
people to know
recommend
that.
it for people, definitely. Even though I didn't get to do it, I think reading back through my notes helped me just to kind of
Piece it all
understand
together.
parts. Yeah. And even bits when I got those, I said to my partner, "Did I have a blood transfusion?" And he was like, "Yeah, you had two." And I didn't remember.
I remember you saying like, "Oh, I've just spotted this and I didn't know that that happened." And I guess
Yeah.
it's about doing that with support because that could be quite a traumatic thing to do, couldn't it? Because there are usually always things in notes that aren't always communicated with patients.
Yeah.
So
And I
I
think
think
if you don't work in that environment or never worked in that environment, I think, yeah, it's been even more of a shock. Or some of the terminology you might not understand. And
no,
obviously, I'm not a midwife, but reading through some of it, you can kind of unpick it a bit more.
yeah,
So definitely
yeah,
worth speaking to someone having birth stories. And it's something I wish I'd been able to do. Just wait times were just crazy.
yeah,
But yeah, getting those notes were interesting, and it was a good talking point for me and my partner because I held so much resentment towards him
Joe,
because he didn't advocate the C-section. And I told him before we started that if it gets to this point, I want a C-section.
so
I don't want this to happen because I think I knew inherently that something bad could kind of come from.
really,
And we had to work through it.
yeah,
It took us a fair. You get a certain amount of resentment anyway when you're a woman having a baby and your
yeah,
husband's
because
life
you're
doesn't
doing it
change.
and they're not, yeah,
Yeah, but then adding into the mix of everything else, and we had to talk it out a few times,
yeah,
definitely.
so
But that's a
hard,
hard one. So
yeah, so
important for your
hard.
partner to be on
Tuned
the
in
same page as you, yeah, and be your advocate. But also, if your plan goes a bit sort of AWOL,
with,
to kind of ground back to that point of, is this still the option you want, or are you happy to change, or
yeah.
plan B or whatever?
It's that thing, isn't it, though?
Yeah,
Like, hindsight's a great thing. Like, they would have had their
yeah,
own journey within that. They would have probably felt scared and overwhelmed. And sometimes we need healthcare professionals to be like, guys, we need to do this. And that ends up being the right way. You weren't to know. It's so hard. So hard.
yeah,
So you get pregnant with baby number 2, and I remember you saying from the offset, even before you got pregnant, 100% an elective C-section next time, no questions asked.
yeah,
And you did,
yeah,
like, probably had, like you said, you probably had the best prep list, because I sent you my long of like must have items, the girls sent in their things, so you went into
yeah,
hospital with the best hospital bag. You knew when the baby was coming.
yeah,
You've got physio by background, so I mean, it
yeah.
goes without saying that your second birth was probably the arch opposite of your first, right?
Yeah, so different, so much calmer, happier. Well, didn't feel like fraught, stressful. There was a little bit of worry going in because you're having surgery in the unknown and
Yeah, it's
hope the
scary.
baby's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not. Yeah, it wasn't so reactive. It was the anaesthetists were great. Like talk through everything.
Yeah.
Music on. I mean, it's not nice, is it, when you go in for a C-section? And I found it a bit lay there with your hospital gown and you've got no pants on, and you're
That's
just kind of,
so
it's
weird.
really undignified.
Yeah. And
Like,
I remember being quite shocked that obviously the surgeon and the assistants are that side, and then the anaesthetist is over one of your shoulders. And I remember finding it really weird they were leading and the surgeon wasn't leading, but then we think, oh, that's quite reassuring actually, because they've got to concentrate. It is so
yeah,
surreal. You go in and they're playing music and they're like, la la la, we do this all the time. I remember feeling so overwhelmed, and I just said, guys, I'm really sorry, I don't want to be rude, but I just can't talk right now. And I'm feeling really nervous. I can't do the small talk where you're about to have something huge about to happen, and you almost disconnect mentally from the bottom half of your body. You can feel
yeah,
like this odd feeling. I actually remember it being a lot more forceful with Arlo. I don't know if that was due to his condition, because he had like loads more fluid or something, or maybe his head was bigger, I don't know, but like I remember it winding me a bit the second time.
yeah,
You can never put into words natural birth and C-sections. You can never explain what it is until you're in there, because it's just a surreal situation. But for sure, for me and
yeah,
you, the second time, the elective C-sections were a lot calmer. You're not like, you haven't got an empty tank. Like, I mean, you're a bit hungry, aren't you? Because you've been waiting, but
yeah,
you are able to focus in a little bit more.
yeah, definitely. I think the C-section was, you kind of knew what was going ahead because there's so much information on C-sections as well. So much
Yeah.
information on recovery, on
Yeah.
different clothes to wear after. That was so much more sort of familiar, I guess. Whereas,
Preparable.
yeah, and the first time you don't get anything for recovery from tear from this, or there
No,
isn't
that
anything
after,
around
but
it.
then you say that with C-sections, but even then there's no information on scar massage. And we know that from our experience, and we've accessed that, and you've got that background. But the aftercare, the physical aftercare for women post-birth is shocking.
It's awful. It's so bad.
And
I couldn't
actually,
really.
and mentally,
Yeah,
everyone should have a birth debrief. Everyone should have an emotional check-in. It shouldn't just be a 6-week
yeah,
appointment. It should be, this session is just to talk about you and your mental health, not a tick box. Do you feel like the bond is
yeah,
there?
yeah, yeah.
Like, we've got so much work to do.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think, what is it, in France they get 36 hours worth of women's health physio or something crazy. Whether that's natural C-section, whatever, they you get that. And I was really surprised coming away from C-section that they don't give you any information, nothing
Nothing.
on like your scar, nothing on exercises. Just don't lift anything heavier than your baby.
Yeah,
Right.
and exercise after 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So 6 months,
Yeah.
think about it, maybe at 6 months. I genuinely had real bad pain around my scar. I did see, I did have some C-section scar massage, and just also that I've mentioned this before in another podcast episode, but the disconnect, that body image disconnect that I couldn't, first time around, I couldn't look at my scar. I was so relieved that there was a dressing over it, because I was like,
Yeah.
good, I don't have to look at it. And then when I had to take it off, I was really like, oh, I can't deal with this. Like, and it's so weird because I'm not squeamish, I'm a nurse, but I was really disconnected from it. And it wasn't till I went to some Pilates, my second one, I was like, right, I need to face this change again now. So
It is
complex.
such a change, isn't it? I think the first time round I couldn't look, was too
Really.
terrified. Couldn't do it. Yeah, definitely not. Even when I saw a women's health physio the first time, she really helped me just sort of come to terms with everything, get on with it.
Yeah.
started doing some exercise, all those things. Whereas this time with the C-section scar, I was okay with it looking at it. I was more intrigued, I think. I
Yeah.
think it's because it was a choice I'd made, and I was
Yeah.
just happy with that choice, that I was like,
Yeah.
right, I want to see the scar.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that like cold, tingly sensation you
Yeah.
get when you touch it.
Yeah.
Oh, mine got really, really itchy, and everyone kept saying, "Oh, it's healing, it's healing."
Yeah.
No, it's really infected.
No.
It's
Actually,
really
I don't think this
infected.
is talked about enough either, because both
Yeah,
of mine got infected. I had to go back in with baby to get antibiotics. Like, I feel like there should be a case for people just having antibiotics for the C-section scar. It's so
yeah,
easy to get an infected C-section scar because you've got a little cave in there. It's warm. Obviously,
yeah,
it's a bit tight, and the knots at the end of mine both
yeah.
times got infected. But we don't talk about that enough either. They don't tell you to look out for
No,
these signs.
no, don't teach you how to look after it. They just said to me, "Oh, keep the dressing on, take it off after a week." But my dressing had ripped in theatre, so like it was
Yeah.
already letting stuff in. So you just kind of like, yeah. And then I think I saw the midwife, and I was like, "I'm pretty sure it's infected." So she swabbed it, and she looked at it, and she was like, "You need to phone the GP." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Why can't the midwife give you antibiotics
Antibiotics. I
for
know.
a C-section?"
Yeah.
Infected C-section, because then you have to try and get a GP appointment, and
Which
it's
is
just
a really big thing to do with a
disheartening.
newborn, having to go through all the loopholes.
And not be able to drive.
Exactly. I
Yeah,
remember them saying, take your dressing off in the or in just before a shower. Mine had, like, I don't know if you had the same one, but like the gel inside it, and the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
gel was all stuck to the scar. So I was like,
yeah,
I remember standing in the shower and being like, trying to scrape away, but being like, am I hitting my
yeah,
scar? Like, is this, no, but I can't leave the gel on there, and then getting dry tissue. But no one knows.
yeah.
This is mad. No one talks about
No,
this.
and you don't know. Yeah, you don't know what to expect either. What's under there when you're taking it off, and like you said, you don't know what bit you're pulling. And
No.
I just always remember one side being so painful. Like I go to sit up, and partner would like try and like ease me up at points, and it'd just be that the right side would be like catching. It would be so painful.
It hits you right in your core, doesn't it? It's really hard to explain that pain.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the best things people said about like sleeping with your pillows like a V shape, because you can't lay flat properly yet, or don't try to because it's just so
Oh, the
tight and
pill.
sore.
Oh, don't. Yeah.
Yeah, and all those things. But I think I went into C-section so much more organized. Like I
Yeah.
had arnica cream for it. I had scar stuff for it for when you could
Yeah.
start putting that on. I think I went into hospital with electrolytes. My husband came in with protein shakes in the
Yeah.
mornings. Yeah, and so is pain relief with it. Don't People always think, "Oh, I'll see what it feels like." Don't, just keep going.
Just
Just keep
keep on
taking
top of
it
it. Don't be brave.
because it's
Just
not worth
keep.
it.
No, it's not worth
Yeah,
it. No. And that's when
definitely not.
and that links to you feeling worse as well when you push it. And in both
Yeah,
forms of postnatally.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this,
definitely. And I think I definitely pushed it too hard the first time and like had a lot of issues. And
mm,
I'd say some still not right. But
yeah.
this time round, the C-section seems I'm 6 months down the line and yeah, doing okay. You still have bits that you're like, you've got a big scar there. You've still got to
Yeah.
work on those bits and your own self-esteem with having a
Yeah.
big scar.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a whole other combo. But the summary of this episode is no easy way, guys. There's no easy
No, they've
way.
got to,
We've done it
they've got
both
to come out
ways.
some way.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've
sorry
got to come
about.
out some way. But do you know what? I think if you had to sign a consent form for a natural birth and they listed all the things that could go wrong, like they weigh up very similar. And I think anyone that can have a natural birth and feel empowered and happy and exhilarated from it and it works for you, that is absolutely amazing. Anyone
Yeah,
that has gone a bit wrong or you're not sure about, have a look into a C-section, advocate for yourself with it.
yeah,
But yeah, none is an easy task, and you've got
no.
to go into it like you're training for a marathon. I think to
Yeah, the
be
prep.
prepared for that
You wouldn't
aftermath.
not prepare for an
Yeah,
exam. I always finish with asking what your piece of advice would be, but you've just done it, and that's it, isn't it? And that gut thing again, like that theme always comes through any of these topics. Follow your gut.
yeah, definitely.
Oh, I feel like we could have talked for another 2 hours, but we have to do another installment. I think we should do another episode on the sassiness of our nearly 5-year-olds and how to how to
How to
manage
manage
that.
that? I
Oh
don't
my
know
god, we
if
should maybe
anyone's
do
got
an
any tips
episode
on
with
that.
them. be carnage. Yeah, send them our way. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
that's all right.
sharing your story. A lot of people wouldn't feel comfortable to do that. And I know that there's a lot of fear with birth, but I guess our main message in this is that knowledge is power. Do your research, know your rights, and know what you can and can't ask for. And that important tuning in with your partner and in that preparation sense as well, and around recovery. I hope you have found this useful. As always, any feedback, let us know. And yeah, if you're enjoying the episodes, make sure you subscribe. Thanks so much. Thanks, Michaela.
No worries.